is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Welcome to the Morgan Man Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Cole Morgan. Here on the Morgan Man Sports Podcast, we talk Atlanta Falcons news, pre-game predictions, and all other news surrounding the Atlanta Falcons.
Touchdown, Atlanta!
Also on the podcast, we talk Call of Duty League, esports, covering Roster Mania, major predictions, COD champs, player trades, and much more to get you ready for every single CDL weekend.
Scuff goes through, and Scuff snaps, wins the one-on-one in optic with the reverse sweep.
If that sounds good with you, put on your Falcons jersey, grab your gaming headset, and let's get this show started. What is going on, you guys? I'm your host, Stacy Cole Morgan, and you are listening to the Morgan Man Sports Podcast here on Spotify, Google Podcasts, GoodPod HQ, or wherever you find your preferred podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about the Atlanta Falcons visiting the Denver Broncos this Sunday, November 17th at 4:05 p.m. Eastern. And guys, we don't have really no more new Call of Duty League updates outside of what I talked about last week, which all the information that I did provide is practically true this week with the minors of, going into those kind of tournaments, but it will be based off of standings, where you're at in the season, even through qualifiers. And of course, the Esports World Cup is picking up Call of Duty League again this season with the Black Ops 6 game. But other than that, really, everything is pretty much the same like I did mention last week on last week's episode of the Morgan Man Sports Podcast. So let's go ahead and get into the Atlanta Falcons and Denver Broncos game. So this is an interesting week for the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are fixing to go on a bye week, and practically they need this bye week, because looking at the injury list right now, we're desperately needing some rest. So let's go ahead and get into this thing. So for the game odds, the spread is a +2.5 underdog for the Atlanta Falcons. So the Denver Broncos are favored at home, but the public bet is favoring Atlanta at a 66% at that +2.5 on the spread. The money line, people are taking Denver at a 71% public bet, with the current -141. Was a +122 when it first opened up. And for Atlanta, the money line is a +118 at a 29% public bet. The total over and under is 44 points, and Vegas is telling you to take the over right now at a 77% public bet. I do believe this could be a high scoring game for both teams, but fix to go into the injury report, it makes me questionable for things like that. So let's go ahead and get into that for the Atlanta Falcons. So Michael Abernathy, defensive back, knee injury reserve, expected to return week 11. D. Alford, hamstring. Tyler Algier is quad swept, however you say that. Please excuse my English. Is questionable for week 11 at Denver. Troy Anderson, linebacker, is knee, questionable for week 11 at Denver. Now, this is where I'm raising my eyebrows at. Kirk Cousins, quarterback, shoulder, questionable for week 11 at Denver. So this could be a reason why the Falcons are not favored on the road against the Denver Broncos, and I could definitely see why. So my question before I go into any further stats right here is, would you sit Kirk Cousins for the next 2 weeks on this one? Now, I am recording this on Wednesday, November 13th at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. So you're hearing this on Friday, November the 15th at 6 a.m. Eastern, or whenever you're listening to it this Friday. But do you sit Kirk Cousins in favor of Michael Penix Jr., just for this week 1 or week 11 game, do you sit Kirk Cousins and let him rest that shoulder for 2 weeks? Me personally, I'm going to say yes. We're in this stretch now. We're 6-4, and the Denver Broncos are 5-5. They're favored at home, not the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to sit here and say that you start Michael Penix Jr., give him the shot against Bo Nix and that high-flying Denver Broncos team, because the Denver Broncos, they are legit, no joke, this season. Now, their offense, yeah, it's questionable, but that defense, this is a true testament for Michael Penix Jr. if he could really compete at the NFL level in a Week 11 regular season game. So you already know my answer. Kirk Cousins, I believe, should sit this one out, rest that shoulder for 2 weeks, and be ready for the Chargers come Week 13. That's just my opinion, and my opinion only. But if you agree with me, definitely let me know on Twitter at TMMSCOD, or not TMMSCOD. That is my old Twitter account. Wow, I remembered that one off the top of the rip. But of course, Morgan Man Sports at MMS Stacy Morgan on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. So let's get into this matchup right here. So the Falcons are the 5th best offense in the entire National Football League, while the Denver Broncos are the 5th best defense in the National Football League. Falcons are 5th in passing and 12th while running the ball. Denver's passing game is 12th against the pass and 7th against the run. So Bijan is definitely going to have his hands full this Sunday with a 7th best run stop off defense. And of course, Drake London, the whole wide receiver and tight end corps is definitely going to have their hands full with a mid-tier passing defense. Now the Falcons defense, we are 24th overall in the National Football League, while the Broncos offense is 24th on offense in the National Football League. So that kind of matches out right there. Now I do like our secondary against this Broncos offense because the Falcons against the pass is 18th in the NFL, while the Broncos offense is 28th while passing the ball. So Bo Nix is struggling a little bit passing the ball to his receiving corps and tight ends, but they are pretty efficient in the run game from what I have seen of clips. But the Falcons are 20th in the National Football League against the run, while the Broncos are 20th while running the ball. So this could be an evened out matchup right here. Is this a must-win game for the Atlanta Falcons? Absolutely. It is a must-win for the Atlanta Falcons, especially if you're going to put Michael Penix Jr. up against Bo Nix this Sunday. Which I know, of course, both of them are offense, so they're not going to face each other, obviously. But still, out of this rookie class, who are you going to trust more? Michael Penix Jr. for learning from Kirk Cousins, or do you take Bo Nix, who's been starting week 1? Which I know Sean Payton definitely has trust in Bo Nix. He sees a young Drew Brees in Bo Nix, and I do too. Bo Nix has definitely got that mobility, that arm. Everything looks like a young Drew Brees out there. And that's why Sean Payton picked him up. Because Sean Payton could have picked up Michael Penix Jr. or Caleb Williams or, a Bryce Young, whoever from this past year's or even, the other year's draft. But no, he went with Bo Nix because he sees a young Drew Brees in Bo Nix. But again, this is a must-win game for the Atlanta Falcons this Sunday to improve to 7-4. Going to the bye week, you have a healthy Kirk Cousins who rested his shoulders for 2 weeks. Ice, heat, whatever you got to do. Kirk Cousins needs to be healthy come week 13 against the Los Angeles Chargers. And that is at home at the Bend. So definitely that is a huge plus for the Atlanta Falcons. But this bye week could not come at a greater time, because I did notice that last week when the Falcons did face the New Orleans Saints, we had a lot of Falcons going down just left and right. And I'm thinking, okay, it's getting about that time. We need a bye week, and it's coming up. But we got one more game until that happens, and that's against a Broncos defense that is not going to let up easily. So we do got our hands full this weekend, but if Zach Robinson and Raheem Morris, and of course, I forget the defense coordinator's name right now, Jimmy Lakes, that's his name. If they could cook up a plan to go up against this Broncos team, who is top tier in defense, I think this Falcons team can win comfortably. I'm not going to sit here and say by like 3 touchdowns or even 2 touchdowns, but by 10 points, a touchdown and a field goal. That's my prediction for this Falcons team. So what, 28 to, I don't know, 18 right in there, 28 to 18 would be my final score prediction. Because, of course, the Falcons offense, they always struggle on the first 2 series. That's been a proven fact on offense. Now, defense, they hold their ground sometimes. But we've tremendously dropped in rankings. Because I do remember a couple weeks ago, this Falcons defense was a mid-tier defense right at the 15-16 mark overall in the National Football League. And now here we are, bottom of the barrel, pretty much, in defense. So Jimmy Lakes has definitely got to cook up a game plan this Sunday and help Zach Robinson out. He's definitely going to need it going up against this Broncos defense. And of course, the entire Falcons team has just got to play pretty good. And Younghoe Koo, I don't know if you're listening or not, but please make your field goals this weekend, okay? Please. Because last week, we could have won that game. I'm not trying to reminisce on the past, but we could have won that game against New Orleans and be, 7-3 right now. But that's not the case as it is. But it is a new week, a new football team, and hopefully Younghoe Koo can redeem himself and score some points if we need him to. So guys, what do you think? Do you think the Falcons can win on the road this weekend and improve to 7-4 overall on the season going into the bye week? Or do you think the Broncos will be above 500, beating the Atlanta Falcons at Denver, Colorado? But guys, I sure hope you did enjoy it. If you did, make sure to like button wherever you are listening from, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you find your preferred podcasts. But until then, Michael Morgan, will catch you all later. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.